After returning to his own mansion, Primal Chaos Armor Chamber number 913, Luo Feng finally relaxed. Like most living beings, he felt much more at ease when returning home, and with absolute confidence in his own strength. He did not believe any danger could threaten him there. He called Morosa to follow him toward the underground palace while Moyu Qingyan obediently remained near the entrance to guard the mansion. However, none of them realized that a terrifying assassin named Ying Cang was already hiding in the sky outside the mansion. His concealment abilities were so profound that he became almost one with space itself, making even Luo Feng and Morosa, who possessed extremely sharp senses, unable to detect his presence. At the exact moment Luo Feng was about to enter the underground palace, Ying Cang suddenly appeared like a ghost. The moment Luo Feng sensed danger, it was already too late to avoid the attack. A blade shadow had pierced directly into his divine body. Ying Cang's assassination technique was perfectly calculated. He easily ignored the mansion's defensive formation, which was only capable of delaying ordinary eternal true gods for a short time. And his mastery over space was so advanced that he could forcefully traverse the void despite Huyang City's spatial seal. Luo Feng was immediately surprised. He knew that only extremely powerful beings could move through the void under the city's restrictions. And this mysterious assassin was clearly not an ordinary eternal true god from Huyang City. He could not understand how the 5 great families could possibly have found such a terrifying expert in such a short amount of time. Ying Cang's strike was his ultimate killing technique, attacking both Luo Feng's divine body and soul simultaneously. A phantom sword shadow rushed toward the soul inside Luo Feng's true god's heart while a destructive force exploded within his body. The power of the attack was comparable to an ordinary strike from a primal chaos realm expert. Even Luo Feng's perfect divine body, which had already undergone 2 rounds of body refinement, was damaged by the terrifying energy. However, the soul attack failed completely. The Star Tower protected his true god's heart, and his spiritual will, which had reached the peak level of a primal chaos overlord and had been continuously tempered by the Great Destruction heart refining technique, crushed the incoming sword phantom instantly. Although his soul was completely unharmed, Luo Feng discovered that the attack had destroyed about 1/10,000th of his enormous divine body. This shocked even him because the amount of divine power contained within a perfect divine body was unimaginably vast. The fact that a single strike could cause such damage proved how terrifying Ying Cang's attack was. Luo Feng also realized that, despite his powerful body, his understanding of the primal chaos laws and his accumulation as an eternal true god were still relatively shallow because he had only recently broken through to this realm and had not yet completed the 3 rounds of the standard body refining secret technique. The primal chaos great strength diagram. Without hesitation, Luo Feng released his miniature cosmic domain, causing darkness to descend over the mansion. He burned his divine power, enlarged his arm, and launched a powerful palm strike capable of destroying even the purple Jade Gen mechanical flow treasure. Ying Cang did not dare face it directly and immediately transformed into mist. Using his extraordinary movement technique to evade the attack, Luo Feng then summoned his dazzling golden armor and unfolded his 6 pairs of Sha Wu wings. By using the wings' ability to control primal chaos, he filled the surrounding space with vast primal chaos currents that heavily suppressed Ying Cang. Under this pressure, Ying Cang discovered that he could no longer travel through the void. He was shocked that Luo Feng's control over primal chaos was almost comparable to that of a true primal chaos overlord. At the same time, he was confused that Luo Feng remained completely unaffected after receiving his strongest assassination strike. Though he believed that Luo Feng might only be pretending and that several more attacks would eventually kill him, Ying Cang's confidence came from his own strength and weapon. His sword, the sword of the world's core, was a single-target mechanical flow treasure worth over 1 million cosmic sand. Its only purpose was to compress divine power to an extremely high level, allowing Ying Cang's weaker divine power to reach a quality close to that of a primal chaos overlord. Combined with the powerful killing technique he had personally created, this made him one of the most dangerous assassins among eternal true gods. Turning into a streak of mist, Ying Cang attacked Luo Feng again, although the suppression from Sha Wu wings prevented him from traversing the void. His movement and combat techniques were still superior to Luo Feng's. His sword moved unpredictably, as though it could still slip through space itself. Luo Feng attempted to defend with his hands and even used his Sha Wu wings as blades. But his techniques were too rough compared to Ying Cang's countless years of accumulation. During the short exchange, Ying Cang successfully struck Luo Feng 12 times. Each attack was weaker than the initial assassination strike but still destroyed large amounts of Luo Feng's divine power. Seeing this, Ying Cang became increasingly confident. In his experience, opponents at his level usually possessed equally profound techniques, making it difficult to land repeated attacks. However, Luo Feng's combat experience as an eternal true god was lacking. Ying Cang believed that Luo Feng's divine body was already approaching its limit and thought that a few more attacks would be enough to finish him. However, Luo Feng had already determined that continuing the battle was meaningless. The gap in technique between them was too great for the fight to help improve his own skills. Therefore, he decided to rely on the power of his treasures rather than his own incomplete understanding of the primal chaos realm. With a wave of his hand, a vast blood-colored river suddenly flooded the entire mansion. This was his second mechanical flow treasure, the Life Blood River, which he had obtained from the Blood Python Association leader. Unlike ordinary techniques, this treasure contained genuine primal chaos realm methods, even though Luo Feng used only 1% of his divine power to activate it. His perfect divine power allowed the treasure to unleash terrifying strength. The Life Blood River combined with the primal chaos suppression of the Sha Wu wings, creating a double layer of suppression that continuously restrained, eroded, and destroyed Ying Cang's divine body. For the first time, the experienced assassin felt the threat of death. Realizing he could not win, he immediately activated his own escape mechanical flow treasure and transformed into a streak of light, forcefully tearing through the blood river and escaping the surrounding primal chaos suppression. While fleeing, Ying Cang noticed Morosa and Moyu Qingyan standing near a small building. Following his ruthless nature, he decided to kill Luo Feng's two servants before leaving. The streak of light carrying his attack rushed directly toward them. Morosa, who had been acting frightened, suddenly opened his mouth. His mouth expanded to an enormous size, covering nearly half of the entire mansion, and swallowed the escaping light in a single bite. Inside Morosa's mouth, Ying Cang desperately struggled and tried to break free. But it was useless. Morosa simply swallowed him completely. After finishing, he smiled happily toward Luo Feng and casually explained that the assassin had just happened to fly straight into his mouth. After Morosa suddenly opened his mouth and swallowed the assassin in a single move, Luo Feng stopped his attempt to use the Lai Yuan technique and carefully observed what had happened. He understood that without relying on the terrifying power of the Lai Yuan technique, his own strength was actually inferior to Morosa's. Although both of them possessed perfect divine bodies, Morosa's cultivation realm was much higher. The assassin had previously displayed incredible speed and evasion abilities, to the point that even when Luo Feng controlled the primal chaos suppression, used both of his hands, and activated the Sha Wu Wing's blade techniques, he still could not even touch him. Yet Morosa simply opened his mouth and devoured him instantly. A move that appeared ordinary but was actually close to the level of the primal chaos realm. This battle also allowed Luo Feng to see the terrifying advantages of a sector beast. The assassin's sword had been capable of piercing Luo Feng's divine body. But when the same attack entered Morosa's mouth, it failed to leave even the slightest injury. Morosa's perfect divine body was not only equal to Luo Feng's but was also used in a far more complete and powerful way. As a sector beast born with the great Tao of destruction origin, Morosa naturally possessed a life essence comparable to the primordial universe itself. Every time he devoured powerful beings, his understanding of the great Tao of destruction would continue to increase until he completely mastered it. Even Luo Feng, with his extraordinary talent, had to admit the difference between them. Morosa was born as a perfect life form, while Luo Feng had reached that level through endless cultivation and still needed to gradually comprehend the laws and improve his realm. However, Luo Feng was not discouraged, because despite Morosa's overwhelming talent, he remained his loyal servant. After returning to Luo Feng's side, Morosa became somewhat nervous. He feared that his impulsive action had violated Luo Feng's previous orders, because Luo Feng had strictly commanded him that no matter the circumstances, he could never reveal his identity as a sector beast within the land of origin. If such a secret were exposed, it would attract the attention of the most terrifying existences in the land of origin, leading to unavoidable disaster. Fortunately, Morosa had only used ordinary divine power and normal techniques, without exposing any abilities unique to a sector beast. Therefore, Luo Feng did not blame him. When Luo Feng asked whether the assassin was dead, Morosa confirmed that the moment the assassin was swallowed into his body, he had already been completely killed. And he then worried that the assassin might have carried a karmic messenger order and transmitted information about their strength before dying. But Luo Feng calmly explained that even if others discovered Morosa was a powerful eternal true god, it would not be a serious issue because such experts existed in every major city of the land of origin. And the assassination had happened too quickly for the assassin to send any message, as his final thoughts were focused entirely on escaping. Morosa then handed over all of the assassin's belongings, including the world's core sword and cosmic sand, not daring to keep anything since he had acted without Luo Feng's command. And Luo Feng accepted the treasures while telling him he could ask for anything in the future. Knowing Morosa could grow stronger through devouring while he himself urgently needed massive resources to increase his own strength to one day protect the sector beast and the dangerous land of origin. Afterward, Morosa entered the Star Tower to cultivate in seclusion and assimilate his gains. And upon seeing the preserved corpses of Qianyu Chang and Mei Wuqi, he understood Luo Feng's intentions, realizing that eternal true god bodies were valuable nourishment and that Luo Feng had deliberately preserved them for him, which made him feel deeply cared for. Outside, Luo Feng maintained his cosmic domain over the cave mansion and effortlessly restored the damaged environment. Then called out Moyu Qingyan, who had been hidden during the battle because as a true god he would have been instantly killed by such powerful clashes. And Luo Feng had secretly protected him and prevented him from witnessing the battle. When Qingyan noticed Morosa was gone, he worried he had died. But Luo Feng reassured him that Morosa was in seclusion and told him to continue cultivating. Meanwhile, in the Flame Wind Pavilion, the Grey Mist figure and the pavilion master were discussing Luo Feng's expected battle with Ying Cang when they received shocking news that Ying Cang's karmic connection had disappeared, confirming his death in Luo Feng's cave mansion, which shocked them greatly since Ying Cang was known for surviving even against stronger opponents. And even the pavilion master was unsure he could kill him, causing them to become much more cautious of Luo Feng and suspect he either had an extremely high realm or a terrifying hidden killing method. Sitting alone afterward, Luo Feng reflected on the battle and concluded his greatest weakness was his cultivation realm rather than his divine body or will. As his perfect divine body was already a major advantage and his will had reached the peak of the primal chaos dominator level through the heart-honing secret method. But his understanding of laws was still lacking, which was crucial for advancing to the primal chaos lord level and eventually becoming a godly king. So he decided to focus on deep cultivation after resolving current conflicts. Though he knew the 5 great families would not let the matter with Mei Wuqi end easily. Soon after, Moli Meng arrived at his cave mansion, noticed signs of the battle, and met Luo Feng, who immediately questioned him about the assassination and whether it was arranged by the 5 great families, pointing out the suspicious timing. But Moli Meng denied it and explained that the city lord's mansion had detected a massive energy disturbance and sent him to clarify the situation to avoid misunderstanding, adding that no expert in Huyang City would dare assassinate Luo Feng and suggesting the attacker was likely an old enemy or someone connected to the Blood Python leader. Luo Feng remained indifferent due to his disgust at the 5 great families' actions, while Moli Meng explained that the Moli clan did not wish to oppose him and that Moli Xiao had ordered the clan to avoid provoking him, proposing that Luo Feng become vice-commander of the Huyang Legion to resolve the conflict. But Luo Feng refused and ordered him to leave, and before leaving Moli Meng warned that the other families would not easily forgive him, though the Moli clan would try to mediate. Afterward, the 5 great families gathered to discuss Luo Feng, believing they had shown enough sincerity by sending Moli Meng and offering him a high-ranking position. But Luo he rejected it, causing dissatisfaction among the Wu and Meiwu clans, whose members could not tolerate someone challenging their authority, leading to proposals to hire powerful outsiders to deal with him, while Moli Xiao opposed this, warning that failing to kill Luo he would create a dangerous enemy. Despite his objections, the Wu and Quming clans, supported by the Meiwu family, leaned toward action, and before proceeding the Meiwu family purchased updated information from the Flame Wind Pavilion, only to be shocked by the sudden price increase to 5,000 cosmic sands. indicating something extraordinary had happened. And upon obtaining the information, they were horrified to learn that Ying Cang, a notorious and powerful eternal true god known for his survival ability and possession of multiple mechanical flow treasures, had been killed in Luo Feng's cave mansion that very night. Now, learning that someone who had survived the pursuit of a primal chaos overlord elite forces had been killed inside Luo He's cave mansion, the leaders of the 5 great families felt fear for the first time. They realized that Luo He's true strength was far more terrifying than they had imagined, and their previous plan to hire an assassin against him immediately lost its appeal. Not long afterward, Commander Moli Xiao and the Lord of Huyang City personally came to Luo He's cave mansion, accompanied by Moli Meng. When they arrived, Luo Feng was calmly sitting in a pavilion at the mountain peak, drinking wine and enjoying a moment of relaxation after his recent battle. Although the 2 highest authorities of Huyang City had arrived personally, Luo Feng did not stand to welcome them. He still remembered that the 5 great families had allowed Mei Wuxia to slaughter millions of innocent citizens, and therefore he did not feel the need to show them excessive respect. The city lord did not become angry. Instead, he admitted that the 5 great families had been at fault. He explained that although he had influence over his family, he could not completely control every eternal true god under his command. He acknowledged that Luo He's punishment of Mei Wuxia was actually beneficial because it forced the eternal true gods of the 5 great families to understand fear and restrain themselves. Commander Moli Xiao also expressed the same attitude, stating that the 5 great families would officially recognize that Luo He had done the right thing if any eternal true god of their families committed such crimes again in the future. Luo He could continue to execute them according to the laws of the Yu Kingdom, and the 5 great families would support his actions. To demonstrate their sincerity, the city lord presented Luo He with a jade vial containing a large quantity of Yi beast blood. This treasure was extremely valuable because consuming it allowed a cultivator to feel closer to primal chaos and greatly improved one's understanding of the law of primal chaos. Luo Feng estimated that the amount of Yi beast blood in the vial was worth approximately 1 million cosmic sands, proving that the 5 great families were truly willing to pay a significant price to resolve the conflict. Luo He was somewhat surprised by their sudden change of attitude because many people, including Moli Meng, had previously told him that the 5 great families would never allow this matter to end peacefully. In response, Commander Moli Xiao explained that the supreme law of the world was respect for strength. The moment they learned that the Flame Wind Pavilion valued Luo He's information at 5,000 cosmic sands and discovered that he had killed the terrifying expert Ying Cang, the 5 great families understood that they could no longer treat him as an ordinary eternal true god. Within Huyang City, there had previously been only one completely independent force that neither the city lord's faction nor the Shi Kingdom's forces dared to provoke, the Flame Wind Pavilion. However, after this incident, another such existence had appeared. Lord Luo He had become a transcendent power standing above the conflict between both sides, a figure whom even the mighty 5 great families had no choice but to respect and accommodate. After Ying Cang was killed inside his cave mansion, Luo Feng was surprised to learn from Moli Meng that the Flame Wind Pavilion had raised the value of his intelligence report to 5.000 cosmic sand. Through their causality investigation, the pavilion had confirmed that the assassin who died that night was Ying Cang, a supremely powerful eternal true god. Luo Feng had never heard of him before because after arriving in the land of origin, he had only lived in Huyang City and had purchased only basic information about the outside world. After receiving Ying Cang's detailed intelligence report, Luo Feng discovered that his strength was comparable to Moli Xiao and Divine Monarch Shui Yun. More importantly, Ying Cang possessed astonishing survival abilities and had once escaped alive despite being hunted by an elite force sent by a primal chaos overlord. Luo Feng felt somewhat regretful because if he had known the assassin's identity earlier, he would have accepted the bounty mission for Ying Cang from the Flame Wind Association's Dark Hall and obtained a huge reward. The Lord of Huyang City and Commander Moli Xiao recognized Luo Feng's overwhelming strength and explained that Huyang City was a frontier city constantly facing threats from the forces of the Shi Kingdom. Because of the pressure they were under, they hoped Luo Feng could assist them in dealing with those enemies, as there would be many opportunities to gain valuable bounties. However, Luo Feng had no interest in continuing the conversation and directly told them to leave. Despite receiving such treatment, neither the lord of Huyang City nor Moli Shao showed any dissatisfaction, which greatly shocked Moyu Qingyan. From their interaction, he realized that his master held a position of absolute dominance even over the highest authorities of Huyang City. Feeling that following Luo Feng was an incredible opportunity, Moyu Qingyan became even more determined to work hard, comprehend the 10 fundamental laws, and someday earn the qualification to become Luo Feng's true disciple. After everyone departed, Luo Feng entered the underground hall of his cave mansion and released the Star Tower. Morosa remained inside one of its levels to digest the powerful bodies he had consumed, while Luo Feng entered another level and examined all the treasures gained from the recent battle. He considered the harvest average. Qian Yu Chong, despite being a commander of the Huyang Guards, left behind treasures worth only about 200.000 cosmic sand, while Mei Wuqi's possessions were worth around 300.000 cosmic sand. Luo Feng understood that although these members of the 5 great families had noble status, they had enormous cultivation expenses and could not accumulate much personal wealth. The greatest gain came from Ying Cang. His remaining treasures were worth around 3.5 million cosmic sand, making him far wealthier than the others. The most precious items were 2 mechanical flow secret treasures. The first was the Sword of the World's Core, a weapon with a single ability that condensed primal chaos divine power and was worth approximately 1.5 million cosmic sand. The second was the Myriad Realms Escape Command, the treasure that allowed Ying Cang to move instantaneously within Huyang City. Even under the suppression of Luo Feng's control primal chaos and the power of the Sha Wu Wanes, Ying Cang had still been able to maintain a speed superior to Luo Feng, proving the extraordinary value of this escape treasure. Although Luo Feng acknowledged that mechanical flow secret treasures were useful to him at his current stage, he understood that they would gradually become less important. His true foundation was his perfect divine body and his powerful will. A perfect divine body refined a second time could already display strength comparable to many mechanical flow secret treasures, and after the third refinement, its power would increase dramatically. Because of this, Luo Feng did not place too much importance on external treasures and continued focusing on improving his own cultivation. The following years passed quietly as Luo Feng immersed himself in understanding the primal chaos laws through the nearby primal chaos ruins. The various factions of Huyang City initially believed that the 5 great families would seek revenge against him, and many waited to witness a massive conflict. However, as time passed, the 5 great families remained completely silent. Since the information about Luo Feng killing Ying Cang cost 5.000 cosmic sand, only a few top forces who had paid the price knew the truth, and they carefully kept the information secret rather than allowing others to benefit from their expensive purchase. As a result, only the highest powers in Huyang City knew how terrifying Luo Feng truly was, and they became increasingly wary of provoking him. More than 20 years later, inside a dark hall in Huyang City, Divine Monarch Shui Yung respectfully communicated with his superior, a marquis of the Shi Kingdom represented by a blood-red flame. This marquis was an ancient primal chaos overlord who had existed for countless years. The marquis expressed his dissatisfaction because Shui Yun had remained in Huyang City for a long time but still failed to obtain the complete formation diagram of the city. Shui Yun explained that the formation had been repeatedly repaired and improved over countless generations, making it unimaginably complex. The array masters who participated in its repairs only understood the small sections they personally handled, meaning no single person possessed knowledge of the entire formation. The marquis did not accept excuses and demanded results. He gave Shui Yun one final era to obtain the complete formation diagram of Huyang City and announced that 2 powerful experts would soon arrive to assist him. If he still failed after an era, he would be recalled, and another person would take over the mission. Shui Yun was shocked by this warning because leading the Shi Kingdom's forces within Huyang City brought him enormous resources, many of which he used for his own cultivation in hopes of someday becoming a primal chaos overlord. Losing his position would greatly reduce his future resources. Therefore, he promised to do everything possible to complete the mission or at least accumulate enough merits to satisfy the marquis. Meanwhile, Luo Feng continued his peaceful cultivation in Huyang City. Snow covered the entire city, and each snowflake possessed an incredibly complicated structure similar to a miniature formation. While observing the snow, Luo Feng reflected on his own progress. He had spent 27 eras in the land of origin. During the early period, his understanding of the laws improved rapidly. But after reaching the peak level among eternal true gods, every further step became extremely difficult. To completely integrate all of his accumulated insights and fully comprehend the primal chaos laws required a tremendous amount of time. Below the mountain, his servant Moyu Qingyan was still studying the laws under Morosa's guidance. Although he had already comprehended 8 of the 10 fundamental laws in just over 20 years and was considered exceptionally talented by his family, Morosa was dissatisfied and mocked his slow progress. In Morosa's view, the laws were not independent concepts but were deeply connected, and true understanding required seeing their relationships and fundamental essence. Moyu Qingyan admitted that he could not yet understand such a profound way of thinking. But because he greatly valued Morosa's guidance, he remained humble and continued trying his best. At that moment, Luo Feng descended from the mountain peak and appeared beside Morosa and Moyu Qingyan. Both immediately stood up respectfully to greet him. Without explaining his destination, Luo Feng simply instructed the two of them to prepare to accompany him on a journey, marking the beginning of his next movement after many years of quiet cultivation. After spending more than 20 years in Huyang City, Suo Zi had grown from an ordinary cook into one of the main chefs of the Fire Realm restaurant. Since the restaurant owner, Black Butcher, rarely cooked personally, the responsibility of preparing the most important dishes often fell to Suo Zi and the other head chefs. With his improved status, his income of primal chaos crystals increased significantly, and every time he counted his savings, he felt hopeful that after several more decades of accumulation, he would finally gather enough resources to attempt a breakthrough in his cultivation. On this particular day, Suo Zi had just finished preparing a Fire Realm feast, one of the restaurant's most famous dishes, and had the attendants serve it to the guests. Not long after, he was informed that his brother, Suo Yun, had come to see him. Suo Zi entered the hall where Suo Yun was hosting a grand banquet for many powerful members of Thousand Mountain Tower. As one of the 39 tower masters of the organization, Suo Yun possessed a high status among the dark forces of Huyang City. In front of his fellow cultivators, he proudly asked Suo Zi to personally prepare the dishes for the banquet because everyone admired his cooking skills. Although Suo Zi politely agreed, he had long realized that his brother was no longer the same person who had grown up with him in their tribe. Since arriving in Huyang City, Suo Yun had changed dramatically. His words and actions had become difficult to judge, and Suo Zi could no longer determine how much of what his brother said was genuine. He understood that Suo Yun frequently visited the Fire Realm restaurant not because of their brotherly bond but because he wanted opportunities to meet Lord Luohe. It was precisely because of his connection to Luohe that Suo Yun had been accepted by the dark forces of Thousand Mountain Tower and eventually rose to the position of a tower master. Over the years, Suo Zi had witnessed with his own eyes how enormous Luohe's influence had become throughout Huyang City. Because of Luohe's reputation and power, many eternal true gods came to visit the Fire Realm restaurant, causing its business to flourish and forcing it to expand several times. The owner, Black Butcher, accumulated more resources than ever before and could finally invest heavily in cultivating his disciples, allowing Suo Zi's own position and future prospects to improve greatly. While Suo Zi was preparing the dishes for Suo Yun's banquet, the entire Fire Realm restaurant suddenly became excited because Lord Luohe had arrived. Suo Zi immediately looked outside and saw Luo Feng approaching together with Morosa and Moyu Qingyan, while Black Butcher personally stepped forward to welcome them. For Black Butcher, Luo Feng was his most valuable guest, having survived countless cycles of reincarnation to reach the land of origin. He had spent many years struggling under the oppression of Huyang City's dark forces, sometimes even operating his restaurant at a loss. However, during the 2 decades after Luo Feng became a regular visitor, the restaurant's prosperity increased so dramatically that Black Butcher earned more wealth than he had collected throughout all his previous years combined. Black Butcher greeted Luo Feng with extreme respect, and Luo Feng jokingly said that if he did not visit the restaurant for some time, he would begin craving the Fire Realm feast. Delighted by the praise, Black Butcher immediately returned to the kitchen, determined to prepare an even better feast personally. He also understood that Morosa, who often appeared as Luo Feng's servant Luosa, had a very unusual relationship with his master. so he carefully arranged food and wine according to Morosa's preferences. As Luo Feng entered the secluded pavilion where he usually met his friends, countless guests and attendants showed him respect. Among them was Suo Yun, whose attitude was especially humble. Luo Feng noticed him and silently thought about the different paths chosen by the two brothers. Suo Zi had devoted himself to cooking and cultivation under Black Butcher, while Suo Yun had entered the ranks of the Dark Forces. Since the brothers were among the first beings Luo Feng had rescued when he arrived in the land of origin, he still paid attention to their growth, although he was not pleased with Suo Yun's decision to join the Dark Forces. Inside the private pavilion, Luo Feng met with his old friends Shang Tianyan and Sang Shuiyan. The two eternal true gods had a very special friendship. Although both of them loved the Dream Flower Tower Master and were technically rivals in love, they had become close companions because they had both once been lonely wanderers without attachments in Huyang City. Sang Shuiyan possessed a detached and indifferent personality. He considered himself merely a passing existence in the vast land of origin and believed that individual achievements were insignificant. Because of this, he criticized Shang Tianyan for creating the Heavenly Flame sect and taking responsibility for so many disciples and sect affairs. In his opinion, even if Shang Tianyan's artifact refining inheritance disappeared, it would be nothing important compared to the countless greater masters that existed throughout the land of origin. However, Shang Tianyan disagreed with him. He believed that even a small wave in a vast ocean still had the chance to create ripples. Since he had devoted countless years and enormous effort to the path of artifact refining, he wished to pass down his knowledge and help future generations. Sang Shuiyan mocked him by saying that his concerns only trapped him and prevented him from achieving true freedom. Whereas Shang Tianyan replied that someone who cared about nothing was like dust that left no mark upon the world. Although their personalities appeared completely opposite, Shang Tianyan revealed that he and Sang Shuiyan actually understood each other better than anyone else in Huyang City, which was why both of them had fallen in love with the same Dream Flower Tower Master. Luo Feng admitted that he did not fully understand their relationship, but he appreciated Shang Tianyan's compassionate nature because he himself also cared deeply about protecting weaker beings. The three continued drinking and talking in a peaceful atmosphere. At that moment, a sudden fluctuation spread throughout the Fire Realm restaurant as a small cosmic domain appeared. Luo Feng and Shang Tianyan immediately looked toward the source and discovered that Black Butcher, who had completely immersed himself in preparing the Fire Realm feast for Luo Feng, had experienced a sudden moment of enlightenment. By breaking through his final bottleneck, he successfully stepped into the realm of an eternal true god. Shang Tianyan was amazed that Black Butcher had achieved his breakthrough while cooking a meal, while Luo Feng, who was already looking forward to the feast, laughed and remarked that a Fire Realm feast created during such a moment of enlightenment would surely be even more extraordinary than usual.